There's no excuse for beating up your mum, no matter what you say or what you think. Leanne Counter had no business trying to forge a career as being a police officer after she struck her mum repeatedly, with so much force that the car she was in actually moved and wobbled from side to side. And the fact that her defence was, I just can't remember what happened, due to drinking excessively, means she did not accept responsibility for what she did, again to her own mum. Student police officer Leanne Counter prided herself on being part of the Cleveland police force. As an officer, she was said to be studious, ambitious, and knew the law inside out. She wanted to forge a career. Otherwise, she would not have been in a position of trust and authority. However, Leanne Counter was also known to have a really bad temper, and sometimes she was out of control. And it manifested itself when she actually subjected her own mum, Julie, to a vicious and sustained beating. According to reports, Leanne had been in good spirits as she gulped down a number of Fireball cocktails at a pub on Boxing Day 2023 with her family. Leanne and her family then went back to Leanne's sister's house in Teeside. Now once there, Leanne began acting belligerent and arrogant and started roaring and shouting and started to create a fuss at her sister's home. After being told to calm down a number of times, Leanne was said to have continued to use foul language and berate everyone. The Christmas spirit was immediately ruined by Leanne's drunk actions, to the point where Leanne's sister had no other option but to chuck Leanne out of the home. Leanne did not go quietly either. Now, despite Leanne's mum, Julie, being berated, she agreed to make sure that Leanne got home safe, and she was going to do that by booking a taxi. Once the taxi arrived, the family struggled to get Leanne actually inside. The police officer was said to be stumbling and trying to get back into the house. But when the police officer was finally inside the taxi driver had listened with disbelief and absolute shock, as Julie was called a CUN by her own daughter. Leanne had roared and also shouted and yelled, "Some ma'am you are, F off, you never have anything good to say about me." Now the taxi driver attempted to intervene and told Leanne that she can't speak to her mum like that, and if she continued, he would then have to call the police. Julie then notified the taxi driver that Leanne was actually, in fact, a police officer. Again, Leanne shouted at her mum, lips pursed and flecked with spit, noses almost touching. "You've ruined my cover. CUN," Leanne shouted again. Now the taxi driver was so peed off by Leanne's bad behaviour that he refused to continue the journey. Instead, Leanne Counter and Julie were dropped off at Wolverstone service station. Now the mum and daughter were effectively stranded, so they wandered round the service station, partly abandoned. While Julie was trying to calm her daughter down, Leanne was firmly in meltdown mode. Because Julie was a mum, she was concerned that her daughter could be filmed while having a meltdown and being angry and belligerent, and if members of the public actually recorded it and found out that she was a police officer, it could get her into real big trouble. Now all it would take is someone to report Leanne's drunk behaviour and erratic behaviour, or worse, upload it to social media for the whole nation to critique and nitpick her. Now Julie eventually approached two men whom were fixing a tyre on their car. The car owner was Lewis Fales and his brother-in-law Mark. They both heard Julie tell her daughter, "You need to stop now, otherwise you will get in trouble." Now Julie then explained to Lewis her daughter was a police officer and then asked if Lewis would be willing to give them a lift, as they needed Leanne to leave the scene before the situation further escalated. Lewis, being a good Samaritan, accepted. While Julie and Leanne sat in the back of the car, Lewis set off. As Lewis drove along the A19 towards Middlesbrough, Leanne had then reached across the back seat, and with a closed hand, Leanne then took aim at her own mum once again and began to clobber her with so much force that the car began to shake from side to side. Everyone was stunned. Now Mark, who was positioned in the front passenger seat, attempted to climb into the back seat in order to separate the mum and daughter in a one-sided incident. Still, Leanne tried her best to reach over Mark in order to jab and hook and poke at her mum. Julie was a complete innocent victim. nothing more than a dummy for her police officer daughter to take out her pent-up and vengeful anger out on. In the aftermath of the incident, Julie was left suffering from a cut to her face, swollen left cheekbone, and black and blue bruises to her forearm. The incident was reported to police, and when police investigated the incident, to which Julie says that she had been crying because it was my own daughter who had me, I cannot even look Leanne in the eye, Julie disclosed through sobs. Leanne Counter was soon arrested on suspicion of ABH, and the first time Leanne actually realised that she had hurt her own mum was when her dad came over the very next day to demand to know why she had the gall and brass to strike her mum. Leanne then says that she could not remember what happened, and it almost seemed as if the police officer was dismissing the entire incident. Now, after the dad left, Leanne Counter messaged a police officer friend saying, "I am not in the good books with my family. My dad just told me I have struck my mum, and if he says it, then it must be true." Dismissive in her confession, Leanne told investigators she could not remember the incident, and Leanne also admitted drinking excessively, Fireballs being the drink of choice. Now, Leanne also admitted on a previous occasion that she had put her dad's girlfriend in a lock after losing her temper, so this was not a one-time occurrence. Leanne had very real anger issues and she had no right to be a serving police officer. Now think about this. Leanne, who's a police officer who was employed to enforce the law, had publicly called her mum the "see you next Tuesday" word, told her to F off, and even when her mum still tried to ensure that Leanne got home safely, Julie received hooks and jabs to the head and the body with so much force that again, it cracked the skin and also caused cuts and bruising. Not once and not even twice. This was a sustained and deliberate incident, and the only thing Leanne could do when confronted with the evidence that she had struck her own mum repeatedly was to say it's completely out of character and I'm devastated for what has happened. And no criminal charges have arisen from the incident as of yet, but hopefully she'll be held accountable by the law. But Cleveland police have opted to fire Leanne Counter, and she has been barred from the police force. Again, she needs to be punished to the full extent of the law. If you are capable of treating your own mum like that, the person who gave birth to you, who carried you in the womb for 9 months, then imagine what she would have done to suspected criminals. Of course, she can't be trusted, and that's putting it lightly. Her entire moral compass was completely shot from the very moment that she had put hands on her mum. And the fact that this was not a one-time occurrence, and the fact that she loved a drink to the point where she would be completely inebriated and bladdered, meant that she could potentially be a functioning alcoholic. The only question left to answer is criminal charges going to be brought against her, or is her being fired the only ramifications and punishment? Stay safe.